a listener production.
Hi, Natarsha Belling with you. Welcome to the Briefing Afternoon Edition. Let's check the latest headlines this Monday, the 10th of March. In developing news this afternoon, there are reports raids have been carried out earlier today by New South Wales and federal police across Sydney in relation to a caravan that was allegedly found packed with explosives in Dural in the city's northwest in January. At the time, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns declared the incident a terror event. It's believed the latest raids are in connection to ongoing investigations about organised crime links to the caravan. And late this afternoon, New South Wales Police Deputy Commissioner David Hudson and Australian Federal Police Deputy Commissioner Chrissy Barrett held a news conference. This is what they had to say.
Today, I can reveal that the caravan was never going to cause a mass casualty event, but instead was concocted by criminals who wanted to cause fear for personal benefit.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is touring flood-ravaged Lismore in northern New South Wales this afternoon, warning the flood crisis from ex-tropical cyclone Alfred is not over. Hundreds of thousands of residents across New South Wales and Queensland remain without power, with many roads remain cut with floodwaters still a serious risk. Here is the PM a short time ago.
This event is far from over, and if it's flooded, forget it. We need to continue to not be complacent.
Mr Albanese also announced a number of financial relief packages for affected residents across northern New South Wales and Queensland, including 13 weeks income support for eligible households and businesses. Meantime, authorities are warning about elaborate new scams targeting flood victims. And later on this afternoon's episode, we'll be joined by Ben Young from the Westpac Fraud Squad on what to look out for and how you can protect yourself. Checking the other headlines this Monday afternoon, security at regional airports is under scrutiny after a teenager allegedly boarded a flight from Avalon in Victoria last week with a gun. He also reportedly threatened he had a bomb in his bag before being tackled to the ground. Risk assessments will be carried out at airports at all capital cities and also a number of regional centres. The 17-year-old allegedly managed to board the flight after sneaking through a hole in a fence. And that's it for your afternoon headlines. Now it's time to get into our deep dive with Ben Young, Westpac's Head of Fraud Prevention, about the increasing risk of scams and just how sophisticated they're becoming. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. We know scammers are incredibly elaborate and becoming very sophisticated, but now they're targeting vulnerable victims that are affected by these floods in New South Wales and Queensland. What examples do you have?
Yeah, it is very sad, isn't it? But unfortunately, the scammers will just follow the news cycle, and if floods and storm damage are the topic of the day, that's what the scams will be about. So we've definitely seen reports of people getting voice calls from scammers pretending to be emergency services. Traditionally, we tend to see a lot of social media content as well, and SMSs, unsolicited SMSs, unsolicited calls, and social media. On rare occasions, people will knock on doors in the past. At the moment, fortunately, we're not seeing too many victims come through. But it's early days. These scams can take a long time for people to realise they've been scammed. And in some cases, people don't realise they've been scammed at all, particularly if you've given money to a fake charity.
What are some of the key red flags we need to look out for, Ben? Because they are becoming incredibly sophisticated. They can hack our emails. They can send actually text messages from exactly the same number as a legitimate organisation does.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, anything unsolicited should be a red flag out of the gate, especially anything that starts to solicit information from you. Like it needs your personal information, it shouldn't require any of those things. I think the thing is that like you say, the phone number can be spoofed. The number might come in to go, look, it's come from that. And there's things called alpha tags. How sometimes you might see a name instead of a number. Those things can be spoofed as well. There is work going on at the moment in Australia to make that telecommunications channel more secure. But as it stands today, you have to be very, very suspect. You can't trust that it's come from that number or that business just because it says so. Also, as you say, websites can be spoofed and cloned very, very easily. And nowadays, with AI, it's turbocharged that stuff. You see lots of fake content, fake images. I'm sure you've seen a fair share of fake interviews that never happened on TV shows where people have just stitched together a completely fake image. So all of those things are possible and people need to be aware of.
So in regards to getting those calls and you don't recognise where those calls are from, what is your key piece of advice? As soon as that person calls, they may even say they're from a very well-known bank's fraud squad. What is your advice?
First of all, I would say that there's really no way for you to tell in that call whether it's them or not. The only way to know is just to hang up and call back because, as you said, they'll say they're from that fraud squad. And the problem is with these days with things like LinkedIn, I can go and look up the name of someone who really works in that organisation and works in that role. So I can give a name that would check out if you just simply Googled it. So you can't really know for sure just by the tone. And a lot of tricks that scammers will use is they'll give you information. They might have got some data breach or something like that. So they'll tell you a little bit of extra information because they know that will win some people over. It's like, I know your address or I know the last 4 digits of your card number or something like that, because that will go, oh, only the bank might know that or only this organisation might know that. So please don't be fooled by that. Just because they're giving you extra information, that doesn't mean that it's legitimate either. I know that sounds a bit scary, but the safest way is simply just to hang up, call that organisation back on a number that you trust or go to their website directly, not a link from a message, not a link from social media, and then just be really, really sure that it's the right department and right company.
And even when they do start to give you information, I understand some experts are saying they're actually building a file on you. So the scammers will keep targeting you and get little bits of information. So therefore they can scam you later, even if they've tried numerous times.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they'll bootstrap information from one source to the next anyway to build up information and even call you and maybe solicit a bit of extra and put it in there. But I absolutely guarantee you, if you've ever fallen for a scam, you are on a list now that they will try to scam you again. So we often see customers that have, they've fallen for a scam, and unfortunately they're now going to get targeted with even more calls because they know a lot about you, and B, that they know that you've fallen for one in the past. So they are the number one target is previous victims.
And what are organisations like yourself, we know there are a lot of scammers targeting big reputable banks, in regards to what extra protections you're putting in place? So if we think we have been scammed, do we call the bank straight away?
Yes, absolutely. The first call should always be to the bank because the banks will chase money. We obviously have very sophisticated connections between domestic banks and even international banks, and we will chase money. Even if it's out the door, it happened days ago or even weeks ago, we can still chase money. So please call your bank straight away. Certainly big organisations like big banks or government agencies, big telecommunication companies get targeted for impersonation all the time. A lot of these scammers just play the stats, right? If they just pick the average Australian, there's a very good chance that you are a Westpac customer or a very good chance that you are a Telstra customer. So the bigger the brand, the more likely you are to be impersonated. So a lot of big brands are spending a lot of time trying to work out ways that customers can be dead sure that it's us. So in our case, we're launching a way that we call customers in our app instead of using the traditional phone channel. So that's the new thing that we're doing. And certainly lots of things like links in text messages. Your local hairdresser might send you a link about the booking you've got. We can't do that stuff anymore. Even though we know links can sometimes be helpful for people to track their parcels or whatever, it's just not a risk that we can take. So organisations like ours don't put links in text messages anymore because it's too easy for the scammers to do that and then redirect you to something else that looks like our website but is not our website.
So bottom line, even if you are getting a invoice, there's a common scam with actual people targeting emails and getting in and putting out a dodgy invoice from a reputable person that you would use. Bottom line is pick up the phone, call the person and say, did you issue this invoice and is this the correct bank number? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you've described a business email compromise, which is a phenomenally expensive scam type, and it actually works very well because, like you say, if it's an invoice that you are expecting to pay, and we see these a bit obviously in all business payments, but particularly in like house deposits, conveyancer payments and things where people don't really have a history of who they were of that payee before. And so if you get an email that says, I just pay this BSB and account number, people will just check it. And a lot of people think they're being very careful when you get a PDF document with your invoice. People are very careful. They check the BSB, they check the account, they double check it, but it never crosses their mind that actually the entire document could be false. And that's the way this scam plays out, as you say. So the email's been intercepted, a different PDF has simply been inserted that has a BSB and account number, and you simply pay the money away to the wrong account. Very, very common, still happens every day, and very, very big dollars when it happens.
So if you're suspicious, hang up and call the right authority.
Yeah, well, obviously, just any of those, change of details or even an invoice that you've got. For example, recently I had some renovations done in a kitchen, and I had various subcontractors. They all sent me their invoice, and I called them all individually, and I said, I just want to double check the BSB and account number of how I pay you. And each of them said, didn't you get my document? I said, I did, but I just want to double check it. Yeah, it's still, this is why that scam works so well. A lot of people are not aware of it until they find out the hard way. So really, emails get hacked all the time, far more often than an internet banking will get hacked. So you have to be very, very careful about what you receive in an email.
Ben, thank you very much for your thoughts and analysis and your tips on how to stay safe this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Ben Young, Westpac Head of Fraud Prevention there. And that's it for this episode of The Briefing. And if you want to hear more about scams, you can search for our previous episode. It's called Australians Are a Scammer's Dream. It's in your feed now, and we'll also pop the link into the show notes as well. And if you want to keep up to date with all our other content, you can check us out on our socials, including Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, and on TikTok and YouTube. Just search Listener Newsroom. And we'll be back in your feed tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. with your morning team, and I hope you can join us tomorrow afternoon. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks for your company.